Welcome back to Famous People, English Stories, Audiobook in Minutes. You've seen them, right? Those amazing news stories about someone who just turned 105 and they credit their long life to a shot of whiskey every day? Or maybe a daily soda. The advice is always so wild, and it completely flies in the face of what doctors tell us. So how do we figure out what's real and what's just a good story? That's what we're going to unpack today. Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Everybody wants to know. We're going to dive into some of these incredible stories of people who've lived past 100 and really put their wild advice to the test. Our goal is to sift through the noise and find the actual usable lessons for a long, healthy life. All right, so let's start with one you might actually like. A 101-year-old says a little bit of whiskey is part of the secret. I mean, who wouldn't want to believe that's the key to a long life, right? But believe me, the advice only gets stranger from here. Okay, from whiskey to this. 3 Dr. Peppers every single day for decades. This was the sworn testimony of a 104-year-old woman. It's the kind of thing that makes you just scratch your head. But hold on, because it gets even more unbelievable. Now this one just breaks all the rules. 12 cigars a day. I mean, come on, how is that even possible? This is the kind of stuff that makes you question everything you thought you knew about health. To really understand what's going on, we need to start digging in and fact-checking these claims. All right, Section 1, let's get into the fact-checking. We'll kick things off with a story that, on the surface, seems like undeniable proof that a miracle diet can change everything. So, meet Mike Fremont. This guy is 101 years old, and he's not just sitting around. He's a world record-holding marathoner. But get this, back when he was 69, doctors gave him a death sentence. Terminal cancer. 3 months to live. So what did he do? He completely flipped his diet, went full macrobiotic vegan. Just a few months later, the cancer was gone. Now, that sounds like a slam dunk for his diet, right? Well, not so fast. Experts tell us to be really careful here. A patient's memory can be like a game of telephone. You hear things from your doctor, from a nurse, you read something online, and over time, all those details get mixed up and become one story in your mind. Now look, a diet rich in plants is absolutely a great thing. Nobody's arguing that. But to claim that one specific diet is a guaranteed cure-all, that's where things can get dangerously misleading. Now for Section 2, we're going to talk about something called the survivorship bias trap. And remember that woman who drank Dr. Pepper every day? Her story is the perfect way to understand this really common, really tricky logical error our brains make all the time. You just gotta love her attitude, right? Her doctors warn her, hey, that stuff's gonna kill ya, and she basically outlives them all. It's an amazing, defiant story, and this is a big but, it's also a textbook example of what's known as survivorship bias. So what exactly is survivorship bias? It's a thinking error where we only pay attention to the winners, the people who survived. We see the one person who drank 3 sodas a day and lived to be 104, and we think, wow, maybe it's not so bad. We listen to her because, well, she's the only one left to tell the tale. And this right here is the absolute core of the problem. We don't get to hear from the thousands, maybe tens of thousands of other people who had the exact same habit, but weren't so lucky. Their stories are invisible, and because we never hear from them, a really unhealthy choice can start to seem harmless or maybe even helpful. Okay, so for Section 3, we're going to get into something a little more nuanced, quality versus quantity of life. Because this isn't always a simple black and white issue. Especially when someone gets to be, really, really old, the whole calculation of what's healthy can change dramatically. Let's go back to Richard Overton, the guy who lived to 109 while smoking a dozen cigars a day. Now, let's be crystal clear. We all know smoking is incredibly unhealthy. Period. That's not up for debate. So how in the world do we even begin to make sense of this?
This is where it gets really interesting. You hear this from a doctor, and it's kind of shocking, right? Many of them will tell you that if a 109-year-old was their patient, they probably wouldn't force them to quit their cigar habit. And you have to ask yourself, why? It's because at that age, the entire idea of risk and reward gets turned on its head.
It's this powerful, very human trade-off. On one hand, you've got the clear scientific risk. Smoking is dangerous. But on the other hand, you have the patient's joy. You have to ask, for a man who's 109, does taking away a daily pleasure actually improve the quality of the limited time he has left? It's a delicate balance between medical risk and human happiness.
Okay, so let's move on to section 4, the true common threads. Let's put aside the shocking headlines about cigars and soda for a minute. When you dig deeper and look past all that, what are the real patterns that start to emerge from these long lives? It turns out the real secrets are usually buried in the details. It's things like fostering social connections, playing bocce with your friends. It's staying active with daily chores, like baking or cleaning the house. It's managing stress. 107-year-old hilariously credited, never getting married. And it's avoiding processed foods. These are the habits that truly make a difference.
That 110-year-old Bernardo Lapallo actually credited 5 specific foods. And unlike cigars or soda, science is totally on board with this list. Garlic, honey, cinnamon, dark chocolate, and olive oil. They're all packed with real health benefits. Now, this is advice we can actually use. Okay, on to our final section, Section 5, Your Health, Your Choices. But before we wrap up, there's one more massive piece to this whole longevity puzzle we have to talk about. It's a huge invisible factor that plays a giant role in how long we live. Behind all the choices we make about diet and exercise, there is a powerful force at play that we have absolutely zero control over. And that, my friends, is the genetic lottery. The reality is, many of these super-agers just plain won the genetic lottery. A lot of their relatives also lived exceptionally long lives. And you can't change your genes. But, and this is the most important part, you can control your diet, your physical activity, and your mental health. That's where you have all the power. And that's where you should focus your energy. This is a lot like something in science called publication bias. It's basically the same thing. We love to publish success stories. The one study that shows a miracle cure gets all the headlines. But we rarely hear about the hundreds of other studies that failed. This creates a really skewed, overly optimistic view of reality. So, what's the ultimate takeaway from all of this? It's pretty simple, really. Build your health on a foundation of proven habits like good food, staying active, and connecting with people. But always remember that the goal is to make informed choices that balance the known risks with the things that bring you personal joy and improve your quality of life. And that really leaves us with one final and maybe the most important question. The goal isn't just about adding years to your life, but about adding life to your years. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What's the right balance for you between living a long life and living a good one?